Hi, everyone. So grateful and happy to be here today. If you're not, don't switch the channel. There is actually 5 people on the show today. We're so blessed to be here. Want to wish everybody a happy Independence Day, and hopefully you're taking advantage of it with family and friends and celebrating. Because of that, the word of the day is freedom, and I think that's so important, in so many different ways. Always happy to have your comments, thoughts, and questions. Chat's wide open. We kind of depend on that to keep us relevant. With that said, I'll turn it over to Kelle, who's been since January 19th, about now we're on 17 months of Thursdays, and it only gets better. And Kelle only gets better, so there must be synergy there. So, with that said, Kelle, bring us up to date and share your initial thoughts on freedom.
Yeah, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are tuning in from. Yeah, what a privilege to be here with everyone today. Happy 4th of July, Independence Day. Happy birthday, America. And freedom, what an appropriate word. And I think this conversation can go in so many different directions depending on what the audience wants to discuss as well. Um, but truly, it's a privilege, and I think sometimes we take that for granted, the privilege of freedom, to be able to speak and act the way we want without any restriction. Obviously within reason. I'm not talking about breaking the law, people. But being able to have our own free will and mind to believe and share our thoughts openly and not be criticized for them. Unfortunately, social media has changed that in such a massive way. But I find it a time to definitely reflect on, the blessings of freedom, because I do think people take it for granted, of thinking it's just there, it just exists. It is a privilege, and it is something we need to honor and respect. And I'll just start there and kind of see where we all go today. And again, total privilege and honor to be here with you all today.
Well, it's always an honor and a privilege. Dave, you're a
Yeah.
military guy along with Jason. What are your thoughts today?
Well, first off, happy 4th of July to everybody. It's great to be here and see these great faces, and looking forward to a wonderful discussion as always. I'm just going to build on what Kelle said. Having been in countries where there wasn't so much freedom, there wasn't a freedom of speech. The responsibility that goes with it, though, is often mistaken. And Kelle, you alluded to it with the limitations that we have. And we don't want to take our freedoms for granted. And yet we have to respect other people and be responsible with what it is that we're doing with that freedom and how we apply it. And, just to respect everybody's time, I'll leave it at that. Responsibility is a big piece of freedom.
Well, that's a great approach, and what they say is freedom isn't free, right? So you got to work for it, and you got to protect it, and you got to support it, and really project the best of what America is. And there's so much to the privilege of being an American, living in the greatest country in the world, and allowing opportunity. And I think that's one of the keys: is freedom can give people opportunities and access. With that, Jason, what's your initial thoughts?
Hello, everyone, and yes, happy 4th. I'm off. I was shared with you guys before we started that I'm off this week. My wife has time off, so I'm spending time with her and just trying to pop in. But I couldn't miss this opportunity to join. And the 5 of us, that was just too good to pass up, to join the community on today. I know there's international community too that are just a Thursday for them. But I'm glad to be here. Interested, as Kelle said, to see where this conversation goes. I have some very strong beliefs on this. As you had alluded to, Dave's Navy veteran, I'm a Marine Corps veteran, and a lot goes with that. I'll leave it there with that for now, but I do want to share this quote, because this kind of is where my mindset's at today, talking about freedom. Is may we think of freedom not as the right to do as we please, but as the opportunity to do what is right.
Yes, I love that one.
And so I'll leave it with that for now.
Well, you'll have to in good hands. So now Omar can take it all the way home. Omar, what say hello, maybe bring a little up to date on people, and your thoughts on the 4th of July.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again. Nice to see all of my friends again. And Don, it's been privileged to be always on your show. And I have my glasses, the red, white, and blue.
Love
I
that.
like these glasses because they fit me well. And it's just a wonderful day, having a 4th of July, having the ability to have freedom in this country, be able to do different things like other countries you can't. Go out, do whatever you need to. That's beautiful. So thank you again for allowing me to be here. And looking forward to a great hour.
Well, that's great. I think we already have the beginning of a great hour, and we've got a holiday that we can really build off of. So, Kelle, I know you were in Florida helping wheelchairs for warriors, and I know you do so much that really offers opportunity and freedom to others, and applauds those who a lot of people don't always take into full consideration. What has changed over the short period of time you've been working with vets and first responders to encourage more support and participation of others?
Yeah, wow. Yeah, last week. So for those of you that don't know, I was in Florida for the DoD Warrior Games, which is adaptive sports for Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, SOCOM, and they had Team Australia there. Seeing our warriors, and I'm talking about folks who have been in battle and they've lost limbs or have lost the ability to walk. And not all of them were in wheelchairs. Some of them just had other injuries. But there's something about witnessing it in person and seeing the spirit of the human being and the soul within that body that fought for this nation, and seeing the joy on their faces when they were competing. And I'm talking y'all, it's mind blowing. You can see it on ESPN. You can go to my feed and see some of the posts from it. But the heartwarming part of it and the reminder of freedom is not free. They paid a price for you to be able to have the ability to speak your mind, to share your thoughts. And it's just the remembrance of that and the sacrifice. I can't even put it into words how it makes me feel personally to see it, or even for Dave and Jason's service, because not everybody's stepping up to do anything. But boy, everybody has a mouth to criticize it if they don't agree with something. And it's just so humbling to be around what I refer to, they're heroes, all of them, and to be around and again see their spirit still shine through and the joys that they have in life, even when the rest of the world doesn't feel like they're supporting them too much. It is just something to be treasured and cherished, and it's for me it's a blessing because I can't undo that experience and what it's done to me as a person, and just to be able to make a bit of a difference. And I've said this recently, and probably a lot of other times too, is people can't sit on the periphery and criticize everything. And my feeling is, hey, if you're going to criticize about something, get involved and do something to change it. And you can do something. You can volunteer somewhere. You can be a part of something. You can teach. You can learn. I shouldn't say teach yourself, but you can learn and just have an open mind. My experience doing live streaming, as an example, Don, that led me to the Awesome Journey, which led me to doing more things with veterans and first responders and mental health and wheelchairs for warriors. I have a completely different respect and just joy and peace of all of these incredible humans that step up for all the rest of us to be able to sit today and have our picnics with our families in safety and security to a degree. And I think I'll leave it there this time around.
Well, you left it in a very good place. Let me, before we go further, give some recognition to our audience. Haley Parton Quick, I don't know if I can remember you, but glad to welcome you. What? We can't break the law? Just kidding. Happy 4th of July 2024. Well, happy 4th of July to you also, Haley. And, I think this is an opportunity and a day for all of us to come together as a country, as a group of citizens who have benefited so much from people who have gone before us. People have sacrificed in ways that hardly anybody really knows. And to Kelly's point, the real survivors and heroes who came back. It's one thing to go down, and it's another thing to go down and come back better in so many ways. Because one thing we always talk about here is gratitude. And too many people don't count their blessings, take things for granted, and overstep themselves. There's enough for everybody if everybody helps everybody. And life is tough enough without anybody making it harder or more difficult, and I ultimately think love is the answer. With that said, we've got a LinkedIn user. I can only guess. Maybe it's Carrie. It's usually Jason, but Jason's here in front of us, so it can't be. Happy Independence Day. Likewise, back to you. Harvey, who is actually one of our faves, really built and supported what we're doing here today. And in turn, I know everybody's been supremely supportive of Harvey, and for good reason, because he is a rising star, works so hard, encourages so many people, creates opportunities. So welcome, Harvey. While we have a full house today, happy 4th of July to my wonderful friends. Also the 1 year anniversary of my appearance on Awesome Journey. And, that's great when you can remember whether it's January 19th with me and Kelly or a year ago with you and Kelly. And, the key is the you and the blank, right? And if you can keep filling that blank in, you're only going to make your situation and opportunity better and help somebody else. Here we go with a thank you. Haley, like Haley Berry. Got it. Unless I pronounce both names wrong. And
Halle Berry.
she
Is it Hallie or Haley?
Halle Berry.
Hallie.
Okay.
Hallie.
We got that covered really well. So moving in proper rotation. So Dave, what are you picking up as far as the vibe and the energy today?
Well, I'd like to point out here is, I think the military, we get a lot of the recognition for patriotism, for freedom, for responsibility, whatever words we're going to throw around here on this one. And I'd like to point out that freedom is the responsibility of every citizen. It's not just the military protecting it. It's the police officer, it's the fire department, it's your neighbor down the street who may or may not have a job today. But they have, and at the same time, they have an impact on our nation and how we approach our problems and our relationships with others. And going back and reviewing that Declaration of Independence, our Constitution, and the rights and responsibilities that are laid out in it, that the founders wanted us to take forth and move forward for eternity. How do we apply those to our daily routine and interactions with others? Respect. We're not going to agree on everything, but we have the freedom to have our own opinions. Several of us have been in countries where we don't see that freedom, where it is very restricted. Democracies, which are not true democracies and really do have restrictions on freedom of speech, for example. Freedom of movement is limited. So we need to take that back to our roots, and it's the individual. It's not just people in uniform. It's everybody who does some sort of service to others, whether it's in government, in general, the economic relationships, or internationally. We all have a responsibility to maintain these freedoms that we're talking about.
Yeah, you make a great distinction there because military naturally comes to mind at the forefront, but it's the civil servants, it's the public servants, You know, I mean, the person who's sorting mail, the person who's, you know, having jobs that they never get a lot of respect or appreciation, you know, but they're there every day doing what they need to do to keep everybody safe, to keep everybody supported. And, you know, I think it's really, you know, everybody's freedom is dependent on everybody else's freedom, you know? So the more people have respect and are honored as people, just as humans, too many people now go way beyond that. You know, they dig too deep, unearth things that really are negative, and makes people afraid to move forward, you know, who are afraid to move into certain positions because they're not as respected as they used to be. You know, I know the mailman was somebody everybody couldn't wait to see every day, you know, because they actually would come to your house and deliver your mail, and everybody would know, hey, that's Bob, or that's Mary, or that's George. And it was almost the messenger who brought you all the good news, maybe some of the bills along with it. But it's just being aware of how much people should appreciate so many other people. And why not be the better person? Why not do a little bit more than expected and surprise people on the upside? So, Jason, what's your new thoughts?
So I'm gonna throw something out there to it might maybe we'll get some conversation going. Maybe I'll never be invited back to this program again. But but this is something that I'm very passionate about. And this is something that and I love you all and you some many great points. And I want to add I want to say something that both Don and Kelle had mentioned. The saying is freedom isn't free or freedom ain't free. Um, and I know both of you where your heart's coming from, and I know you both mean that in the greatest of ways. But unfortunately, sometimes that's used with an agenda, and sometimes that's put out there, and people say they use it because they're trying to make a point about something. But unfortunately, when we talk about freedoms, and I think we've all really touched on it, it's like we have a responsibility to it. You know, what's the the quote? Ask not, you know, what your country could do for you, what you could do for your country, to finish the thought if people aren't aware of what I'm talking about. But a lot of times people will use that term and say, well, freedom isn't free. But then when they get pressed and they have to sacrifice, they're like, well, my rights. And this is my, and it's like, well, it's circular. We as much as we're the recipient of freedom, we really have to be the giver of freedoms. And that's freedom for everybody. That's freedom not for people that just look like you and just talk like you and just sound like you and just have the thoughts that you have. It's for all of us. And that's what I love about this group is that we all have different opinions, of course. We're different people, but we can respect that. We respect different opinions, and we respect that we all have that right. And I'll leave with one other thing that I love to talk about freedom is your right, your freedom to swing your fists ends at my nose. So you have the freedom to swing your fist, but right when it gets to me, that's where your freedoms end. And so once again, we have that as a group, as a collective, as a nation, as a people, that freedom that we share, and it should be shared with all of us.
Yeah, well, that will endear you to us and make sure you come back more often, Jason. So any fear of loss is overstated. With that, Haley is prodigious today. Yes, the actress. We've got our old friend Dean. Me and Kelle know Dean really well. And glad to see you, Dean. Hope you're prospering and having a wonderful 4th of July with us. Haley comes back with still love my mail lady, Jenny. Well, good for you. Here we have a good friend, Leslie Flowers, woohoo 5 stars. I guess we all qualify, and maybe because of Omar's background, that's become forefront.
Can you name all the stars in the back? Which one's Polaris? Is it here? The North Star is behind here.
And I just want to share, Leslie does 2 great shows a week. Fridays is Think and Grow Rich. Mondays are Mind Over Matter. Leslie's been a great supporter of all our shows promotes it, shares it. And I think that's the key is people can talk about things, but who's actually out there doing something?
Yeah.
And it's the doing that makes the difference, not the fine compliments and thoughts that people may have or good intentions. But everybody could do a little bit more. And we're such a big, strong community of individuals in this country that it doesn't take a lot to get a lot done. One last thing I'll say is freedom lost is very hard to be found again. You know, so it's a very fragile, sensitive opportunity. And, you know, like, you know, until I went to other countries, did I fully appreciate where I lived? You don't know what you have until you see what other people don't.
Amen.
And you just are so grateful to kiss the ground when you come back here. Because none of us would be where we are today without the freedoms that were given to us or allowed for us to take advantage of. And, you know, it's only fair for the next generations to have that same opportunity going forward. Here we go. Leslie says, okay, we got our names there. Thank you, Leslie. Hope you're having a wonderful 4th of July. I know you were important in taking troops to Vietnam and served as part of the airline support that provided that. So thank you, Leslie. Great lady. I must have done 50 shows at least, and I still look back and laugh at them. Christine is here. Christine, if you don't know Christine, I think all of us do. Just a fundamental model of what it is to juggle a lot of balls, take care of a lot of people, you know, in her corporate career as a family individual, and a great supporter of the show. So thank you, Christine. Moving to Omar. Omar, where are we now?
My turn. Yes. Okay. Well, I was gonna say that I know my mailman. You mentioned that his name is Craig. I doubt he's watching, but if he is, hello, Craig. He delivers to my parents' house and to my apartment. So I talk to him. I know him well and stuff like that. So first of all, that. And the second part. What's the second part? More about, I guess, what they mentioned. Some good points, and what you mentioned as well, Don. Right, going to a different country. And can you name the country you went to, and you came back? Is that a possibility to name the country? Compare the two countries. I mean, you know, you mentioned.
Yeah, no, we took trips to Thailand.
Yeah.
Took trips to Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Been to the Caribbean, and you know, every place is special for what it has, its history, its traditions. But you know, the ability to move and live and go wherever you want is fundamental. I know if it's not the way it is that it used to be in China, people were relegated. Here's your job, here's your movement. You don't go beyond this and you don't do that. And you know, there was a gentleman named Eric Fromm who wrote a book, Escape from Freedom.
Yeah.
And in that book, he said people who aren't given choices settle for whatever they're given because they don't know any better or they've always been restricted. Once people see that, you can't take it out of them. You know, it's easier, like I say, to be in the dark and never go to the light. But if you go to the light, it's really hard to go back to the dark. And I think that's why a lot of countries do that, is because they know if people given a choice wouldn't choose the choice they have. And that's why things are restrictive. But, you know, it's only through having freedom of speech that people have a true voice. And to compare that with live streaming, we all have gotten our true voice that we always had, but not a place to really share it and to be a model for it. Because I know one common thread that everybody on this show and everybody that I've gotten to know are really good people. They have good hearts.
Right.
They will do the right thing if given the choice. And sometimes they'll do the right thing, even if it goes beyond a cost issue or a time issue, because they just have a compass inside to know what's right and know what isn't. and really curing those wrongs and standing out front, because it only takes one hero, one model to stand up, and they'll get people who follow them. And some people are just followers, but they need that person up front. And people know better. You know, we always talk, you know, think with your heart, not your brain, because in most cases it'll direct you in the right situation. So Kelly.
I mean, oh my gosh, so many great things. And Jason, I just kind of want to go off of what you said, which I think is so beautiful. And what I also adore about this community is because we can all have our own opinions, beliefs, and all the things, but we all do have respect for what each other have to say. And then there's not judgment on one another because there's respect for who the individual is. And I think that's a freedom of self, because that is something within social media that does get me sometimes, is how people get so angry at what someone posts. And it's like, then just keep scrolling by. Like, you have the choice to do that. And I just, so many great things. And Omar, I do want to say, one of the countries that I went to that did absolutely change my life, and there were a few, but one, I was in the Soviet Union.
That's what I was thinking of. I was thinking when you were on my show, you mentioned that. So
yeah. Yes, I was the first one of this year on Omar's show. I do remember.
7 months ago.
So crazy. I can't believe that much time has gone by. Yeah. But I do think when you experience other, not just other countries and cultures, but it does help you really see the value in what you have. And it puts things into a different perspective, but you have to be open-minded to it. Because I do look back and I do think, like, my friends were saying, like, why are you guys going there? And we're like, well, why not? But I look back now and I'm like, I wish everybody could have gone to see, because it did change the course of my life, in the sense of, it made me appreciate what I had in the United States on a different level, because I didn't realize, we just know what we have is what we have. We don't know any different. But when you experience others and accept it in, I don't know, it was a game changer for me. And that is why I hold it so close.
Yeah, I was gonna say something that I like how your family is open-minded, that they're open to go to different countries and see how it is. And so that's important. You know, a lot of Americans should be doing that, going out and seeing different cultures around, and not just be scared from the media and the TV. Because when you go there, it's an interesting thing. The other day I saw a YouTube video of a whole American family. They went to Pakistan and they went to Afghanistan. And I'm like, why would you go there? And then they said they enjoyed the experience there. And I'm like, I wouldn't go to Afghanistan, but they're like, oh, we enjoyed it. This is fun and all this. And I'm like, what's there? But it's like, there were 5 like white Americans who went there. They enjoyed it. And they're like, we're going to come back. And they asked all the kids, they interviewed them, do you enjoy it? And they said, yes. So, you know, it's different on the media than on actually there. So, you know, it's amazing. I don't know about North Korea. That's different maybe, but.
Yeah. Well, because we forget too that, and I will say that was one of the original things with Don and I on this show, was about community and how people were showing up when we didn't even have a word. We were just showing up and talking and getting involved. It's because we all are looking for the same thing. And this will circle back to something that Don said earlier. Community is all about feeling safe, supported, and love. And that's international. I don't care where you go. Everybody wants to be heard and wants to feel love. And that's something that resonates. And we do have individually the freedom to do that, and the freedom to be kind. And I want to continue to say that over and over again, because just because you don't understand someone else or what they're doing or don't agree with them doesn't mean that you don't have to be kind, or you need to reduce yourself to their level. So I think this time around, I'll leave it there.
Yeah, well, I think reserving judgment goes a long way. You know, thinking back to when we were in Thailand and we got a chance to see the best in some of the more challenging areas, like the jungles and going out on floating markets and things like that. And everybody on the bus and the tour that was with it, you could hear people talking about the country and the people. And I heard people, can you imagine what they're doing in that water right now? And can you imagine how it is to live in that hut? And I'm thinking, you are so far off. You're a guest in someone's country, right? You should be happy they allowed you in and shared with you what they are. And you're saying how they're not as good or like us or something like that.
Yeah.
And, everything is relative and conditional. You don't know how good it is until how bad it could be. And then, respecting people and asking yourself, why do you say things that are not supportive? Why are you tearing things down instead of building things up or giving credit? I mean, you always have that choice to do good or do nothing or not, or to do bad. With that, here we go. Dennis found his way. If we're liberal, we can do the left thing to help people. Well, helping people is more important than I think persuasion, right? And the nice thing about freedom, it gives you the freedom to change too.
Yes.
Right? So you could be
Right.
something today, and then tomorrow you can choose to be something else. It's the people that put that stake in the ground and say unconditionally, you have to pass this test. Well, who's going to pass everybody's test who's determining what the score can be? And why do you care? I do believe that 99% of people just want to live a happy life, a safe life, want to provide for their family, want to expand their opportunities, and really looking at what everybody else has or hasn't doesn't change what you have. It just takes your mind off of what you could be doing to gain more of that. Harvey comes back with, I can't believe Omar has been sent into space, freedom amongst the stars. Well, one thing, a good sense of humor goes a long way. Omar looks like the background of my new fiction. Well, you got to tell us what that new fiction is.
I'm actually meeting with Leslie later, and so we might do a contract later. So
I was going to say, I feel like that was a plug.
Well, launching the July 25th. Good luck to you. We'll all keep our eyes peeled for that, and want to wish you the best.
Leslie, if you want to take my picture and put it on your cover of that promo,
Christine comes in. Well, in defense, some of the countries, I did live in Italy at some point, and it was pretty great, and that's perfect too. Is to see again different places, and the other thing is what do countries really support and promote? And one thing I'll say about like Asian countries is there's a bigger reverence for older people. Most countries where people live to be 100, the people are still in the families, they're respected, and with purpose and meaning, that makes a whole difference to who you are and what you can be. Harvey says, freedom is interesting. Just because you can doesn't mean you should, but the choice to make good and bad decisions and see things from different perspectives is to be treasured. And I think treasure is a good word because it's legacy that's really important. What are you leaving behind for those? And because life is short, it's uncertain. You never know. No one can guarantee anybody tomorrow. And that's even more impetus to promote goodness, because when you're gone, it might be a little interesting, but what is everybody going to remember about you? Are they going to remember how you loved, how you provided, or how you fought against something that really wasn't? And other thing, most people don't know what they don't know. And a lot of people go off track because they heard something, they saw something, and without questioning, they just took it for granted. And that's where freedom becomes a little bit more challenging. Here we go with Haley. I don't know Omar, but poor Omar. Well, the last thing I know about Omar is being poor. One thing about wealth,
I got sent to space.
it really starts with your smile. It starts with your warmth. you know, and that's freeing. You know, when anybody can put their hand out or smile at you, they have already accepted you before even hearing from you. And what does that want to do is someone puts their hand out, you naturally put your hand out. And then Harvey says, they will remember how you made someone feel for sure. And that goes way beyond. And it's little things, you know, fostering a dog. My daughter now has her fourth dog. She became another foster for this dog and it was so interesting, not to get too far off. This dog had never been inside. It was always in a breeding pen for 4 years. And she took a video today, and you could see this dog just rubbing against the soft couch, you know, and doing things that you would never know. And, you know, that's so rewarding. So I don't know where we left off.
Dave.
With Dave? Dave? Okay, thank you, Jason.
Wow, I don't even know where to begin on all this. This is just going everywhere. It's just a great conversation. You know, I'm thinking about, you know, the word respect we've said, and Harvey's comment here of, you know, you don't have to respond to everything. And it's a respect for yourself. It's a respect for other people. You know, the second point I'll make that I was thinking about is, you know, remember a friend of mine talking about being a cradle Catholic versus a converted Catholic, and who takes it more seriously, who is more into and understands the intricacies of the Catholic Church. And it's the person who's converted because they've been dedicated to it. And I'm making a parallel here for very good reason. The rest of us are here. We were born here, we were raised here, or we had family. I was born overseas to a military family. So, I mean, I'm an American, but I knew most of the culture. I wasn't really understanding the politics when I lived overseas as a child. But I was ingrained with the Constitution, you know, the Declaration of Independence, freedom, all these things that we take for granted. But it's the people who convert that really get into understanding what it is and understanding how it's going to be applied or should be applied to our day-to-day lives. And what I encourage folks here, and my point is go back. You know, read the documents, read the Federalist Papers, understand the thinking. And I think too many people get hung up on, well, I was raised this way and this is the way I was going to be. And I'm not going to respect your opinion because I was raised right and you were raised wrong. And the last point I'll make is, you know, we say all the time, I follow a gent on, I think it's Instagram or Facebook, who's a Brit in America. And he goes back to his Brit friends and he says, look, we always talk about the ugly American who never travels overseas. And as I watch the Euros, the football competition over in Germany right now, you can fly from Germany or England over to Italy or Spain or to Romania in 2 hours. That's like me flying down to Jacksonville, Florida. And you can go to different countries. Well, even in our great country, the melting pot that it once was, and I think still is to a certain degree, I fly to California, I'm in a different culture. I fly to Colorado, I'm in a different culture. I go from New England to Georgia. Now, my family's originally from New England, in America at least, and I went to Georgia Tech. Much different cultures. I was a damn Yankee because I'd come from Maryland to Georgia Tech. We have the opportunity. So what I'm getting at here is, even within our great country, we can find other cultures from which to learn respect for our freedoms without having to go overseas, though I highly encourage it, because even state to state, there are restrictions on our freedoms that may not apply in other states. Just like going from Germany to Italy or to Spain or to England in Europe, it's very different. And one of those things that we might take for granted.
Yeah, I think you make an excellent point because everybody's from somewhere else. And everybody continues to move to new places. And I think that's what made this country great, was open arms. The people accepted people. And, you know, I think there should be a movement to return to innocence, you know, is where you just keep things simple, keep things right. You know, growing up, And, you can go back at every different generation, and there were pluses and minuses. It wasn't all great in the 50s or 60s or 70s, but people kept things inside, and maybe that wasn't always right, but what happens inside this house stays inside this house. And I remember my mother telling me, and my grandparents came from Europe, and she said, and she grew up during the Depression, and they didn't have a lot. My grandfather was a cattle buyer, right? So they always had something to eat. But she said my grandmother made it sure that she had two daughters, my mother and her sister, that if anybody came to the door that was hungry, we have to feed them, right? So whoever comes, you tell them wait outside. You go out, make a sandwich, give them a glass of milk, and that's the right thing to do. And that's when people's doors were open, that you could play outside, and anybody, if you knocked on their door, would be there to welcome you or take care of you. And maybe you didn't worry about the outside because the neighbors were always there for each other. And I think we've had that. We've learned that, but we've lost a lot because of technology. Because so many people now have access to a microphone that they never earned, they never deserved, right? And there's enough people who are sheeple, right? They'll follow about anything or anybody. Dave?
Yeah, I'm just going to build on that real quick, Don, because a lot of people say, children being kidnapped, bad things happening to kids back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. Oh, that never happened. Well, it did, but we didn't have this mass international media storm to say these things going on. And yet we still had a lot of innocence. And I'm very fortunate that my neighborhood here, my daughter's a little bit older, and the kids in our cul-de-sac here don't always interact anymore, but there's still some younger kids. And I know that if there's a parent who has to run down the street real quick, I'll watch their kids. We have a community, we have a network and understanding because we've built relationships. And those are things that make America great, right from the start. Not to steal somebody else's slogan, but we've got to remember the little things that make us wonderful as a nation.
That is so valid and so true. And we can move back to where we were and where things were the best, right? Because at the end of the day, what does it make you feel as a human, as a person? Can you put your head down on your pillow and be proud of your day and how you represented yourself and supported? Omar, you had a question?
Yeah, not a question, a comment. I was going to say, what really changed from 100 years ago when you mentioned that whoever came to the door, people would come in, you give them food. Like right now, if somebody comes to my door, we would be cautious, right? We would be like, this guy, am I sure? Is he safe? Is that the question is what changed, from 100 years ago during your grandparents' time till now, right?
Technology.
Is it media? Is it TV, news, and all that makes you more aware of things? And I would do it if I know the person, my neighbor, I've seen him. I've done that before. I have a college student who's my neighbor. When he first moved in, I knew he's an international student. I talked to him. He's a college student. I gave him food like the second day I met him because I knew he's a new student. He needs help. And so he was thankful for that, right? So once you know the person and see how they are in a week or two, why not give them? Why not support them, kind of thing? And that's how I'm at. But that's the question for you guys. What changed for 100 years? Technology? Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that. Growing up, there was only 3 TV networks. It came on the news every day at the same time. And, you could switch channels and the same news was playing exactly everywhere. It just happened to have a different commentator or a different personality. And you got what you got, and that's all there was. Now, what happened, I agree with Dave, is technology. Now, at your door, you got cameras, right? You make sure who's there. What are they doing here? Fortunately, someone doesn't pull a gun on you, if you hit the wrong door the wrong way. And some people make mistakes. And I think it's all based on fear. And the fear continues to get multiplied because Dave's right. Everything bad that's happening today was happening before, but it didn't get taken out of context. You know, somebody gets hurt and now everybody thinks everybody's going to be hurt. And all of a sudden the people are like, protect yourself, you know, so it's all close the door, get more locks, get more cameras, don't do this. But where are we going? We're putting ourselves in a corner. We're pulling away from life and other people. And that can be turned around, but you know, you need role models. You know, you need honor and you need honesty and people that will tell the truth, even if it's not always the best thing for them. And people who will move out of line to let someone in who is more deserving or needs it. Where is the fire? You know, I know growing up, life was slow. There wasn't much going on. You'd go out and play, and you'd play with stuff that nobody would play with today. You know, excuse me. If you had a rubber ball, you could play foot hockey all day long. You know, if you had a hula hoop, it was just simple things. But, you know, it gave people a chance to be people with people on a regular basis. How many people read books anymore? You know, it used to be nice to have a book in your hand and go to bed and relive the story. And now it's like between TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. I mean, you're seeing stuff no one should have to see. And then you come back and watch more of it. And, you know, they found a way of doing that. So here we have another comment from Christine. I second the comment on conversion. I was an atheist. And now I'm open to new ideas. And I do think I try to live and embrace certain spiritual principles like honesty, service, humility, etc. And, you know, give everybody a chance to give themselves a chance. Not everybody's there at the same time. Not everybody's lived the same life that conditioned them to who they are. I mean, you're brought into the world as a total innocent. You have no ideas of politics or anything else. And you know, that comes with time and it comes with maturity. And I think that's a key element of freedom is how mature are you as a people? How generous are you as a people? And everybody has something to give that they can afford to give. I had a gentleman, we talk about Pakistan, who came to this country, came to work for me, knew nothing of the culture, and actually came from Pakistan, which was a whole different way of conditioning in a sense. And he's huge now. He's international, doing some fabulous things. And he always called me Mr. Don, no matter how many times I said, just call me. No, it's always going to be Mr. Don. And when he said to me, he says, I want to give to others, but I'm not aware of charity. How does that work here? And he said, you know, when I get a lot of money, I'm going to give a lot. And his name was Ali. And I said, Ali, I'll tell you how it works. When you have a little, give a little. When you have a little bit more, give a little bit more, because you'll be in that pattern. If you always say, one day when I get this, I'll do that, it's a day that may never come. And if that's what your interest is, start where you're at. And I think that was important. But let's go to Harvey.
I was going to say, why don't you bring him on the show one time? That would be interesting to bring Ali on the show. If you're in touch with him, that would be an interesting story.
Yeah, and he's an interesting guy. But you know what it shows is I wouldn't say a chance on somebody who was different, somebody I knew wouldn't exactly be a good fit per se, but I knew he had a work ethic, he had a desire, and you know, everything he was doing was to send money back to his family. And you know, I just saw somebody who had the best of certain things, but needed a little bit more support, mentorship. And, you know, a little bit can go a long way if someone's got that desire and hunger and, you know, something he was never used to. Haley says, still a book, yes. And last comment from Haley is, I'm 45. My 18-year-old has to keep me up to date. Well, that's the beauty of these shows. I've learned so much from Kelle and so much from Dave and Omar and Jason and on that I would have never been able to learn if I didn't have open conversations. And the other big part I think that gets missing is listening. That's almost an art that most people forgot about. Is they're so fast to the trigger. They already solved the puzzles without buying any vowels. And it's not freedom for the other person not to have the chance to do and say what they feel really want to say. And no one should have to tell anybody anything. There's a difference between telling and suggesting. And they really say if you want to teach somebody, talk about yourself, not them. Right? It's easier to say, when I went on my diet, I did this, and if they get the message, they'll pick it up, versus, hey, here's what you should do starting today, and I'll be watching you. I don't think that works so well. Again, I forgot where I left off. Anybody want to? Jason, thank you, Jason.
Thank you. And it's crazy that we're wrapping up right now. It's been a wonderful hour. We turned the horn and it went full steam. And thank you all for joining all of us together in this community. And thank you, Don, for bringing us together today. Wonderful conversations. I do want to touch on a couple threads that really struck me, and I'll wrap up. The one thing that not to start open a huge box right as we close, but the good old days weren't so good in some ways. There was a lot of things that were very negative, but I think the one thing is that we talked about what's been different, and I think it's about connection, and it's loss of connection. I think the challenge has been that, and this isn't political, this is just my feeling about people, is that there was a organizing thought to bring us more together. There's always tribes. There's always going to be tribes. That's just the human animal. But I think we've tried to reconnect us more. And as of late, we're looking at more of how we're different instead of looking how we're alike. And I think that, and then what does that do? That leads to fear. And what does fear bring? Fear brings you don't open your door, and you've got guns, and you've got, and you have to protect yourself. I'm not anti-gun. I have guns myself, but I'm a Marine. Come on. But it's that fear of, we disconnect. And so I wanted to touch on that just a little bit, where I think that's the difference is that the idea is to break us apart and not see the connection that we are, and we are all connected. The other thing I wanted to mention is about, I love Don, you talked about is about we have choice. And when I work with clients, I'd say that freedom is having choice. Sometimes they don't want to do something, but it turns out they fear that if they learn how to do something that they don't do, that then they'll have to do it. And I'm like, wouldn't you rather be able to do that thing and have the choice to not do it instead of having this fear or whatever that's stopping you from being able to do it? I'd rather be able to skydive and be like, I'll skydive, and then say, but I'm not going to, than to have an absolute fear of it. I mean, that's a far right to the description, but in that. And the last thing I'll leave with is this. This is the question for everybody, and it's obviously a kind of rhetorical, but what do you do with your freedom? What do you do with your freedoms? Because that's your power. And we talk a lot about politicians and about this and government and this and this and this, but we all have our personal freedom and our personal power. And what are you doing with that? How are you changing your world and everyone else's world with your freedom?
Beautiful question. I think you made some wonderful insights. And, I'll answer it, and then I'll swing it around for everybody else to answer it. Is not everything has to be measured in politics or in anything else. When I look at my grandkids, it's like I'm encouraging them to continue with their saxophone. Yeah. That's a freedom you have, right? And it doesn't affect anybody. No one gets, when you say saxophone, nobody has an opinion except they know it's music. And really compensate or accommodate for what the bullying is out there. So how do you add another level of kindness, another level of respect to those people? Because sometimes they're so in need of a kind word. So many people are telling them how they're not good enough, how they don't measure up, how this. And if someone keeps telling you something, and many people over and over again, you start accepting that. And you start giving up your freedom and didn't even know where it went. It's just that I'm tired of putting up with that abuse, or I'm tired of comments or criticism, and really being that person who says, hey, listen, right or wrong, I'm always there for you. You never have to worry. I tell so many people, even in my family, that you'll always have a place with me. So no matter how bad things are, you're never going to be on the street, right? As long as I got something, you got something, and hardly anybody will probably ever need to take it up. But knowing, hey, I got a little reserve there. I got somebody who thinks about me that I forgot that made me as valuable. That's important. So, Dave, what's your thoughts on what Jason provided for us?
Well, I think, what do we do with our freedom every day, or what do we, I think that's your question, Jason, if I remember correctly here, is I try to be nice to people around me, and I try to have an allowance for them to do what they want to do, to the point where it disrespects somebody else, or endangers them. And I say that only because the first thought that came to my mind is my teenage neighbor driving around with his cell phone in his ear, and I'm going to have a chat with him later without telling his folks. But at the same time, look, freedom it's a nebulous subject, a topic that people can take so many different ways. And having the choice and the opportunity to do what you will without intruding on somebody else and their ability to do the same is critical to our future.
Yeah, and knowing that and doing that is not that difficult a distance to go to. And it makes you proud to know I could give a little and I don't lose anything.
Yeah.
So it's not like, okay, I had to take a hit, but I helped somebody. And the other thing is, when you see wrong, try to help the person. How many times are you in a challenging situation? Maybe you got a flat tire or something or whatever, and then some good Samaritan comes along and says, let me help you, doesn't know you, probably will never know you after that. And they say they didn't have to stop. Most people don't. But it's being that person that says, oh, that person is getting taken advantage over there. I should go in and say something and change something if possible. So it spreads both ways. It can be contagious in a good way and not so good. Omar, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a deep question, definitely. I mean, with freedom, like you mentioned, a lot of you, that be kind to people, right? Be more kinder, be open-minded. It's hard to really say because I grew up in here and compare that to other countries, what freedom really is. But you have the ability to be able to do whatever you want here, legally, not stealing things or not doing anything major crimes, but just do your best to help the society, help people around. That freedom is very great. It's a major thing, right? That's the major thing about it. You can go out, do whatever you need. You can open up a charity if you need to. You can open up different stores and help people out in society. So that's the freedom that I would say is very important. I can do a game show like I did, so stuff like that, help people out, make them laugh. So yeah.
Well, that's great. And I think you bring up a point. There's a freedom to fail that people don't take advantage of. You're not going to hit the top prize, but you're going to play. And I think just playing is a freedom. Too many people, I'm not good enough. If I go to golf with someone who's good and I'm not, but that's from you, not from them, but you project it. And the freedom of choice. And today it could be vanilla, tomorrow it could be chocolate. And there's nothing wrong with either. Whatever your favorite flavor is. And I think, America goes beyond 31 flavors. And I think that's one of the blessings is there's so many opportunities, so many places, so many things you could be doing, and crying about it, complaining about it is not encouraging freedom. Kelle?
Oh my gosh, so many great things just said in that whole last round. And I think one of the things I just really want to end and wrap with is it comes back to the whole thing of do unto others as you want done unto yourself. And we have that freedom to do that. And that's a beautiful thing, and to support one another. And because there's a whole mental health part that I'm like, that's a whole nother show though, as far as freedom.
Yeah.
I had the freedom to show up here today and be with y'all, and what a blessing and a gift that is, and how blessed that we all are that we get to sit here and freely, openly share our opinions and our thoughts with the audience and have them interact. I mean, a true blessing overall. And I do believe that when we go out into the world with the choice that we choose in our mind of it's going to be a great day or it's going to be a crappy day, we will pick up all the information to feed that belief. So go out and make it happy. You have the choice. It's no one else's fault or responsibility. You have the freedom to choose how your day is going to be. And I will end as I always do, because I think this is a pertinent time to say so. Go out into this world and shine so bright that others can't help but shine too. And happy 4th of July, everyone.
Well, thank you, Kelle. And you always inspire me and everybody else. And, you know, what you just mentioned brings my thought into context is I had the freedom to bring us together today, right? And create this opportunity. We had the opportunity to take a word like freedom that matched up with 4th of July and make one hell of a show out of the word freedom, right? And it shows we have the capability. And not only that, but we spread it by inviting a whole audience with us today. And then taking it one more step is the people who will see this for eternity, possibly, that will never get to meet, know, or appreciate, who will continue to benefit from it. So it was really organizing and synchronizing and multiplying and leveraging in the technology that we can complain about, but also, you know, it's not what it is, it's how it's utilized.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you could talk guns, you could talk this, you could talk that, but it's where is it best applied and when is it worst applied? And that's the key, because too many people make something out of nothing because it's a thing. Well, the thing by itself doesn't do anything until you do something with it. And I think that's the difference, is really freedom is based on responsibility and accountability. You don't need laws if everybody keeps the law themselves, right? If everybody protects everybody, if everybody's thoughtful, you don't need someone telling you what to do or legislating. You just want the opportunity to say, hey, I just want to be left alone and do what I feel is right. And I want to leave other people alone. And I think, to Kelle's point, the golden rule applies to the freedom that you offer other people that they are looking for. And most of the time, people are going to do whatever they're going to do anyways, you know? But I think someone who has a model, someone who starts their own show tomorrow because of this show, or decides to bring 4 friends on with them and multiplies that reach. So we could talk forever. We're a little bit over.
Never enough time.
I hope everybody takes the time to appreciate the country they're in, the freedoms that they're allowed, and the opportunities that they can choose. And freedom of choice is everything. Free will is everything. So bless everybody, bless this country and our troops and all the people, the civil servants and public servants that go out of way to make life easier and better for all of us. And can't thank you all enough. So if anybody has a last word, if not, we can always smile in unison and wish everybody a happy 4th of July, and be safe out there today. You know, be careful with the fireworks, the driving and drinking and everything that goes with it. And love your family, love the people around you. Make that one of your responsibilities, is tell people how you truly feel. The people, and call somebody up who maybe doesn't have somebody today, or somebody you haven't talked to in a while. use that as independence for them and you. So we can talk forever, and we always why we always have more shows.
John, again for the opportunity. I'm glad I was able to raise the ratings today for the show. Thank you for allowing me to come back.
You brought in the solar system with you, so we can't
Yeah.
Out of this world.
get any more expansive than that.
Yeah.
So look forward to seeing all of you probably next week or so, and enjoy.